I recently got asked the question, which Overwatch League team was the best all time? Now, as good as a concept as that would be, I think most people probably already know the answer, considering that one team won multiple championships. So instead, I thought I'd rank all 20 Overwatch League teams based on their entire team history and put them on a tier list. I'll be going based on complete franchise history, so one really good season and three mediocre seasons won't put a team at the top. Obviously, this list is subjective, and it's far more for fun than an actual serious analysis, so if you enjoyed at any point, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below. It's the easiest way to let me know you enjoyed. Alright, let's start our tier list. Now, we aren't going to be using the boring regular S to F scale. We're actually going to be making our own custom things. Starting things off with our first tier, we're going to have the 2x champions tier, reserved exclusively for the San Francisco Shock. That's right, Shock fans, you can delete your angry comment, you get to be at the top of the tier list. Winning 2 championships and also making half of the Overwatch League finals means that the Shock are an easy choice for the top of this list. Not to mention that they had an insane collection of legendary players, and the only player to ever win MVP in their rookie year. In the second place tier, we have the Philadelphia Fusion. Now, you can definitely argue that some franchises are more successful than the Fusion, however, I just couldn't pass up an opportunity to put them in second place. To be fair to them, getting to the finals so many times is an accomplishment all of its own, although I'm sure they would have liked to have actually won something. Heading off our next tier, we have the somehow always good except for one season tier. This goes for teams who haven't necessarily won a championship, but were always relevant, above 500 in the playoffs, winning games pretty much every year, and that goes to our LA Gladiators and my Atlanta Reign. Obviously, they both have that one year that they weren't very good, the Gladiators being 2023 and the Reign being 2020, but in basically every other season, they were always contending, always competing, they were always making it to finals or winning tournaments, so I think this is a pretty good spot for them. Now, you might be wondering, why are these teams above other teams that might have won a championship? Well, I don't think a championship is everything. You have a team that maybe won a championship but sucked for the rest of their existence, well, I don't think they should be as high as a team that basically made the playoffs every year. Take the LA Gladiators, for example. In 2018, 2019, and 2020, they were always a consistent above 500 team and were competing for the playoffs. In 2021, they even managed to win a tournament and were a top team, only going down in the playoffs because of an upset. 2022, they won back-to-back tournaments, were always on top of it, and the only reason that 2023 was bad is because they had a really bad late season fall-off. As for the Atlanta Reign, they were pretty good, especially in their debut in 2019. 2020 was their rough year, but in 2021, they made it all the way to the finals. In 2022, they were an above 500 team and made the playoffs, and in 2023, we all remember how they were one of the most dominant teams of all time. They crushed the midseason madness, and they were able to make it to the playoffs as the top seed. Yes, they didn't succeed, but they were still a very successful team. The combination of having a bunch of winning seasons and always being relevant, I think gives them a spot up here. Maybe I'm a little biased, but so be it. Right below them, however, is the tier reserved exclusively for the Dallas Fuel. Those who burn blue burn brightest, because that 2021-2022 run basically carries them all the way up here. Winning a championship is really nice, and the only reason they aren't higher than LA or Atlanta is because they did have several seasons where they were mediocre to bad, especially in the early years. Coming up next, we have the Shanghai Dragons. Shanghai Dragons would be up really high, considering that they were really good, especially in 2020, 2021, and 2022. However, that 0-40 season basically tore them from second place all the way down to here. Having a 0-40 season, I'm sorry, even if your team is fantastic, 27-2, a championship, the most dominant season of all time, it went 0-40, highest I can put you. Next up, we have the Carried by Jonak tier, which of course belongs to the New York Excelsior. They were really only relevant when Jonak was on the team, and once he left, they fell off a cliff. Absolutely carried by Jonak, no dispute here. Next up, we have the terrible for multiple years and suddenly good tier. First team we're going to be putting into this is the Florida Mayhem, who were pretty much unwatchable for the first couple of seasons, had a good season in 2020, sucked again in 2021, and finally turned it around in the later years and ended up winning a championship. Along the same lines will also be the Houston Outlaws, who did a very similar thing just without the championship part. They were really bad in the early days, had a couple flashes here and there, but especially around the 2020 season, they were just awful. But they were able to turn it around in their later few seasons, being really good in 2021, 2, and 23. Next up, we have the carried by profit tier, which of course belongs to the Seoul Dynasty and the London Spitfire. Seoul Dynasty gets to be a little bit higher because they were actually good before Profit joined, but a good majority of their success comes from Profit. As from London, as fun as the European core in the later seasons were, this team's entire legacy is carried by Profit, and Bird Ring to an extent. Their ring is only a thing because of Profit, so Profit tier they go. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you saw that I posted a couple of tiers early, this being one of them. So, if you want to see sneak peeks like that, or if you want to hear about live updates about the OWCS games and see my live reactions, follow me on Twitter, link in the description. Up next, we have the always going on playoffs runs tier, which goes to the Hangzhou Spark, a team that usually doesn't do very well in the regular season, but if they manage to make it into the playoffs, you know they're going to perform well, especially in those later years. They would tend to have some major issues during the regular season, but hey, that doesn't really matter if you just win in the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs will tell you all about that. Next, we have the perfectly balanced as all things should be tier, which is reserved for the Toronto Defiant. I don't really know what it is about the Toronto Defiant. They just always manage to just be okay, never good, never bad. They release their players every year, so they never have a chance to really grow. Their only real star was like Hisu, and then the people they had in OWCS, which doesn't count. And in pretty much every season, they went like 8-8 or like 10-10, 12-12. They just seem to be always perfectly consistent, which I guess isn't the worst thing. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been doing that for the last decade, so I guess it's a pretty viable strategy. Next up, we have the Guangzhou Charge tier. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know what to think of the Guangzhou Charge. Sometimes they're really good, other times they're just really bad. They're never a superstar team, they're never competing for a tournament, but they're never bottom feeders. They're usually not very good, they're usually mediocre, but they have some highlights. That 2020 run that they had when during the Sigma meta was pretty cool. But other than that, what is the Guangzhou Charge? Next up, we have the team that single-handedly won majority of their games in one season, that being the 2019 GOAT season. Back when Vancouver Titans had the runaway squad, they were a serious threat. And once they lost that, they were not for the rest of their existence. Unfortunately for Vancouver, they will basically just be remembered for the 2019 season. Vancouver in 2020 were really bad. They started out great, but once they lost that roster, it was downhill from there. 2021 Titans only won a single game, and in 2022, they were considered underdogs at best. 2023 is where they finally turned it around, having a could-have-been Rookie of the Year Sugar-Free on their roster, and eventually acquiring Hisang. They had a lot of really good talent, and unfortunately, the Overwatch League ended before they could really turn it into anything. Unfortunately for the Vancouver Titans, they're basically just going to be remembered for GOATs. Next up, we have the carried by Striker and Decay tier, which goes to the Boston Uprising and Washington Justice. Striker was basically all the Boston Uprising was in the early days, and Decay was literally all that Washington ever was at any point. Think about every highlight moment from the Washington Justice, Decay is in it. And Decay was also one of the highlight stars in the only good season that Boston Uprising really had other than 2018. Decay was absolutely killing everyone on Tracer, and he was basically carrying that team, so carried by Striker and Decay they go. The next spot is for the only team to have only played in 4 seasons. As much as I love Chengdu and as fun as they were to watch, not playing in 2018 or 2023 means there's just a lot less of Chengdu to watch. They had some really fun highlight moments, playing Wrecking Ball, Leave's basically dominant run in 2021 was super fun to watch, but unfortunately for Chengdu, they just weren't around very often, and when they were, they weren't that good. So all the way at the bottom they go. And finally, we have the genuinely how tier. Reserved for teams that have made teams that are so bad, I'm genuinely not sure how that managed to happen. The Paris Eternal had a good thing going in 2020, and even though they kind of fumbled it in 2021, they still were pretty okay during that season. After that though, what they went like 1-32 over the next 2 seasons? That's just impressively bad. It makes the Cleveland Browns look competent. As for the LA Valiant, what they did during 2021 basically sold their team's soul. It was one of the most unwatchable products in any sport I've ever seen, and they continued to just not be good after that. Yeah, there were some highlight moments, but the Valiant were never the same, and I think they're the worst franchise, all the way at the bottom with the Paris Eternal. Here's the full tier list if you want to see the whole thing. If you enjoyed this video at any point, do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and leave a comment down below. All of these things help me out a ton and are able to help me make more videos. College just started back up, so it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to make content, so a little bit of help goes a long way. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, love you guys.